It's Ty here with Ty the Dog Guy on the Daily. And if you're watching the video portion of this podcast, you can see that, and if you're not watching, I've got my arm in a sling here. I hurt myself a few days ago, and like is pretty common with me, when I have a life event, I can often kind of trace it back to, get a dog training lesson out of it. Here's what happened. I was at the gym the other day. Now, I'm trying to get in better shape, and although I'm not in great shape, I am a pretty strong guy, and I enjoy lifting weights. And so, I was typically, when I lift weights, I'm by myself. There's a gym just right next to me. I just head down there, and I'm usually by myself. And so, when I do bench press, for those of you who don't know, bench press is when you lay down and you push the weight up. When I normally do bench press, I do it on what's called a Smith machine, because I don't have any spotters. I just do it on this machine where you can kind of easily rack your weight. So if you were in over your head and suddenly you had too much weight, you can kind of flick your wrists and it's going to rack the weight. So when you're doing it by yourself, when you're lifting weights by yourself, sometimes the Smith machine can just be a little bit safer. And so that's what I normally do. Now, the downside is that there's really only one track the weights move on. It just goes up and down, in this exact pattern. And so what happens is your muscles don't have to compensate. At least this is what I think has happened. I'll get into my injury here in a second. But your muscles don't have to compensate. And as a result, your body just gets used to pushing in one exact direction, where if the weight wasn't on that track, you would have to kind of manage that weight, and you'd have to have much more control of it. So anyways, rewind here to a few days ago. My brother and nephew are in town, and so we said, hey, let's just go to the gym. And so we decided to do bench press, and well, I had a spotter, so I didn't need the Smith machine, right? I decided not to use the Smith machine, just decided to do regular free weights. So we'd done a few sets, and things were feeling good, and I was interested to know, how well I would do without the Smith machine. And so had done a few sets, and had got to a level of weight that I can usually do 6 to 8 repetitions with. So it's not like an enormous, it's a good amount of weight, but it's not like this huge amount of weight that I was really I was being way too ambitious on, because normally I can rep it pretty well. So I do about 2 reps, and then I think on the 3rd rep, suddenly I felt the most sharp, stabbing, searing pain in my upper pectoral here. Just pop, 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 and the weight dropped on me. I felt, my brother caught the weight real quick, got it back on the rack. I fell to the floor screaming, and just an enormous amount of pain. I go to the emergency room, and it's a torn pectoral muscle, and even today I'm finding bruising on my bicep. Anyways, it was an intense amount of pain. But what it made me realize is the difference of a tiny bit. Is the difference of, because here's what I believe happened. I believe that my body has become accustomed to bench pressing one way, and because it's on the Smith machine, I only have one option. And so here, where I was having to balance the weight more than I usually have to balance the weight. I was just maybe a few centimeters off, or an inch or two off on my normal form, and suddenly, pop! It burst the muscle. And so, like I say, I can find a lot of dog training. A lot of dog training examples here, because I've found that the difference between success and failure for most of our clients usually is not something huge. And so when we've got a client that their dog, they're struggling, we've been working together, they're still struggling with the aggression, or they're still struggling with the house training, or they're still struggling with this or that, I've rarely found that it's something huge or different. It's usually something minute. It's 2 centimeters that we need to change. Sometimes literally, they need to be holding the leash just a tiny bit different, or they need to be, doing this just a tiny bit different. But almost all the time, they're 2 or 3 tiny little changes away from having success. And that can be frustrating, I know. So for you guys who are at home, who are really trying to get your dog trained, it can be frustrating when you can feel like you're knocking at the door, but you still just keep dealing with the same problem. And like I said, I can guarantee you that you're almost, if you've been doing a training program, I'm not saying just mine, of course do mine, but if you're doing any training program, you've seen results, you've seen things work, but you're just not quite at the finish line yet, and things aren't the way that they should be. I can almost guarantee you that you're 2 or 3 tweaks away from getting where you need to be. Now, like I say, in my case, 2 or 3 tweaks meant the difference between a good bench press and enormous pain, and now I've got 4 to 6 weeks of rehabilitation and wearing a sling, and I'm already getting yelled at by the wife for not wearing the sling. And anyways, it can mean disaster, those 2 or 3 little tweaks, or it can mean success. And so, like I say, look at that in your dog training efforts. And if that means hiring somebody like us, if that means getting your friends to watch you train, if that means, you know, getting more books, watching more videos or something, just to find that extra little whatever you need to do, then I'd recommend you figure out what those 2 to 3 things are that you need to tweak and get after it. So, best of luck in your training.